All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending our webinar. It's happening here, Progressive Youth Activism on the South Shore. My name is Brianna Bennett. I am the Youth Outreach Advisor for the Hull Democratic Town Committee. Just before we get started, I wanted to give you a few housekeeping rules. Please forgive any technical difficulties we may experience tonight. I also want to let you all know that we are recording this webinar and it will be available after we've completed the webinar and we've uploaded it to the streaming services. And we are intending on making this webinar available on YouTube after we've recorded it. So you will be able to check it out there and recommend it to your friends. If you have any great takeaways for tonight, please tell your friends about it and tell your friends about the organizations you're going to hear about tonight and the panelists you're going to hear from. We've got a great panel for you and we're really excited. So also, I wanted to let you know that there is a Q&A option at the bottom of your screen, and we encourage you to submit questions to our panelists. There will be a Q&A about halfway through the webinar once we've introduced everyone, and you are more than welcome to submit questions to them. We also have some pre-submitted questions that they will be answering. Now, to speak more on the Hull Democratic Town Committee, we are an organization in Hull on the South Shore that is committed to electing Democrats, engaging in politics, and increasing awareness about the issues that we all care about: energy, environment, all sorts of things that you are going to be hearing about tonight. We have two other co-sponsors for this event, the South Shore Young Democrats and the South Shore Democratic Caucus. We have representatives from both of those organizations that are here tonight to tell you more about them. So I'd like to invite Chris Matthews and Melissa Shapiro to turn on their cameras and join me and tell the attendees more about your organizations.
Okay, because my video is on, I will go first then. My name is Melissa Shapiro, and I am the chair of the South Shore Young Democrats. I also have the privilege to be one of the founding members of our chapter, all the way back in early 2017. So I'm proud to be part of the Young Democrats, which is an organization that exists to help those 35 and under get involved in the Democratic Party. As part of the Young Democrats of Massachusetts, our mission is to elect Democrats, advocate for progressive issues, and to train the next generation of progressive leaders. So the purpose of the South Shore Young Democrats is to connect Democrats through the age of 35, but also now for our chapter through the age 40 as well for our associate members, by providing working, volunteer, electoral, and educational opportunities throughout the South Shore area, as well as foster civic engagement by encouraging young people to come involved in the democratic process. We also want to increase awareness of and participation in the Democratic Party by presenting the ideas and beliefs of the Democratic Party in an open and public manner. We also want to develop young leaders by providing training and workshops to our members, as well as to other Democrats, to stimulate dialogue on important issues facing the South Shore area, the state of Massachusetts, and the United States of America. And also to support the electoral efforts of Democrats, particularly those who are young and share the values and beliefs of the South Shore Young Dems and the Young Democrats of Massachusetts, and to initiate and assist in advocacy of legislation and ballot initiatives that further the policy objectives of the South Shore Young Democrats and the Young Democrats in general.
Cool. My name is Chris Matthews. I'm chair of the South Shore Democratic Caucus. Our mission is very simple. It is to support the 8 Democratic town committees in the Plymouth and Norfolk district and support events like this that Hull's putting on. We're made up of the town committees of Weymouth, Hingham, Hull, Cohasset, Scituate, Norwell, Duxbury, and Marshfield. I think I got all 8 in there. But we do things like have this Zoom account so that all of our town committees can use them for great events like this. And we're also very proud this year for the first time to have been able to max out to all of our candidates with contested races, as well as max out a contribution to the Massachusetts Democratic Party to support the coordinated campaign, in the hopes that that money comes down to support Meg Wheeler and Emmanuel Doctor here on the South Shore. So very excited to be here and to hear from everybody. I am a young Dem for the next 5 years. I'm dragging my heels, hoping that lasts longer than 5 years. And I'm excited that, Melissa, that you guys have changed your rules so that I can be an associate member till 40. So that gives me some hope. But I'm really excited to hear what the folks on the South Shore are doing. And thanks for having me.
Thank you, Chris. I'd also like to thank the South Shore Democratic Caucus for allowing us to share this space here on this Zoom webinar tonight. And I'd like to thank all of the organizers for this event, especially Celia Nolan, who put so much effort into this, and this would not have been possible without her. I'd like to thank all of the panelists who will be speaking tonight and our moderator, Representative Joan Meschino, as well as our guest speaker, Meg Wheeler, who is going to be speaking to us next. Now, Meg Wheeler is a candidate for state senate who is committed to investing in people in communities on the South Shore. She's trying to flip the Plymouth and Norfolk District blue in this election on November 3rd. And we're excited for her to come on tonight and tell us about her experiences, what she's setting for an agenda, and how we can all learn from this to be more engaged in our communities. So Meg, if you would like to come on and speak to all of us.
Sure. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. Hey, everyone who's watching live and those watching on the replay. Thanks for sharing your evening with us. Thank you to Brianna and Celia and the whole DTC and the South Shore Democratic Caucus and the South Shore Young Dems for welcoming me here tonight. I'm really excited to be here for a couple of reasons. Number one, we are in the home stretch of our campaign. We're a little bit less than 5 days out. This is one of our last campaign events that we're doing, and I'm really just excited to be here with you all because progressive activism, and especially youth progressive activism, is something that is very near and dear to my heart. This is my first time running for office, but I've thought about running for office for a long time now. And I will tell you, I want to talk about a couple of things in my short time here, but the first thing I want to touch on is how important it is for young people, especially women, especially people of color, but all young people to actually consider running for office. And I can tell you that for many of us, it's not something that maybe comes easier naturally to us. It's something we're probably very nervous to do. And so it's really important that we actually support each other and have conversations with each other and encourage each other to consider running for office. Because until our government looks more like us and really truly represents who we are, we're not going to see the kinds of policies that really benefit all of us. So having more representation at the local levels, at the state level, and at the federal level is really crucial. And that one of the best ways to do that is really for a lot of us to actually consider running for office. So to kick it all off, I will say this is my personal offer to you. If you're considering running for office, call me, email me, text me. I'm more than happy to chat with you because I think it's really critical that especially young people really start thinking about whether or not serving in government is the place for them. But I also wanted to just touch on what I've seen here on the South Shore, because running for office is not for everyone. Some people, know that that is not the way that they want to affect change. And I've been so honored over the last, 10 months of this campaign to see so much youth activism here on the South Shore. And as I've been a resident of the South Shore for about 10 years now. And I will tell you, coming into this campaign, I didn't really know what to expect. I think there is a bit of a stigma about the South Shore, and then we had tragedies come up like the murder of George Floyd, and it really, I think, activated the youth presence here on the South Shore, and it was so inspiring to see. Literally every town, Cohasset, Hull, Hingham, Scituate, all of them. All of a sudden, we were seeing all of these Black Lives Matter rallies and protests and marches and conversations and book talks, and people having, debates and discussions about policies. And the majority of that was fueled by the young people in this district. So to everyone watching who is a part of that, thank you so much for everything you've done. I think you play a really important role in keeping government accountable and keeping your elected officials accountable and also keeping your communities accountable. Because I think we all know that with a lot of these tough issues, there is a bit of waning interest. And we've already started to see that with the Black Lives Matter movement here in just the last month or two. And so I think it's especially important for young people. I was about to say us young people, but I don't know if I can completely put myself in that group. But for young people, to really keep their communities accountable. And y'all have done that this year, and it's so incredible to see. But I also want to encourage you to to experiment with finding your voice and finding your place in the world of activism. So I'm 36 years old, and for the last, I guess, 18 years that I've been an adult, I've kind of gone through peaks and valleys of how I've been involved and how I've spoken out. And I've, for a part of my life, a good part of my life, participated in the nonprofit world. I've gone to marches and I've gone to protests, and I've testified at hearings and spoken out on causes I believed in. And it's only really now that I feel like I've kind of found my place in this world and figured out really how to use my voice to speak out for the things that I really care about. So I want you to know that it's an evolving process. And I think it's really important that you get out there and you try a lot of different ways to be engaged and be a part of creating a better society, because we do have a lot of big problems. I mean, look, the South Shore is not protected from racial inequality. It's not protected from economic inequality. We're not protected from the climate crisis. We've got a lot of really big issues here, and I know that we can solve them. But in order to solve them, we really need folks, especially our young people, to push us and put the pressure on, and keep driving the point forward that this is really critical stuff and time is running out. I mean, I think about the climate crisis and my young son and what life I'm leaving for him. I think about the immigration situation. We had the privilege this last year of welcoming a man into our home who was seeking political asylum from Angola, and hearing his story and seeing what he's gone through as he's tried to seek asylum here in Massachusetts. I mean, he flew here into Boston, and how challenging that has been. There isn't time to waste. We need to act now on these really critical issues. And I'm so motivated because I'm seeing all of you young people do that. And so my message to you is to really consider how you can get out there and use your voice. And I love there's that quote by Senator Warren, the one of, certainly we all know the one, nevertheless she persisted. But before she said that, she said to really focus on righteous fights, to choose righteous fights. And I always think about that when I wake up in the morning and I feel tired, or I might feel frustrated, or I feel like maybe it's a losing battle. I always remember that. And I think that the most important fights for us to fight are the ones that are the hardest. They're the ones that take the longest. They're the ones that make us the most uncomfortable. They're the ones that sort of challenge us and pull us in every possible direction and really test who we are as people. But those are the fights that are worth taking. And that's what I think about, what I've thought about throughout my entire campaign. It's what I will bring with me when I'm in the state Senate. And it's what I will frankly carry with me for the rest of my life, because, I believe in equality and equity and justice for every single person. And that is a fight that I will gladly take on for as long as I need to. And I'm so excited to see every single young person I've seen out there taking that fight on too. So know that the work you're doing is critically important. Know that you have a place in this world and your voice is important. And figure out the best way for you to be engaged and to express that voice. But also, I started it off with this, and I certainly want to end with this, consider running for office. I can't stress enough how important it is to have more voices of young people, more voices of women, more voices of people of color in elected office. And it doesn't just have to be at the federal or even the state level. Consider running in your towns, for a select board or school committee or the Affordable Housing Committee. All of these things are really important. There's a lot of really important policy decisions happening at the local level, believe it or not, and you have the opportunity to really affect big systemic change even at that level. So I'll leave it there. I don't know how long I've been talking. I could probably go on forever, but we've got an incredible panel of young people tonight that I want to turn it over to. And just thank you again for inviting me here. Thank you for all the work you're doing. And please know that I am a resource. Please reach out to me at any time. post November 3rd. I have no time in the next 4 days, but after that, I'm all yours, and I support every single one of you and the work you're doing. So thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you so much. We're so glad that you could be here with us tonight. And that was a really beautiful and inspirational message. I really hope that young people hear what you just said, and that, you know, we don't need to be 70 years old to run for office, or to care about the issues that really matter to us. And I think we're seeing an increase in youth participation, and people are starting to run for office. And I just want to say that we did put a link to Meg's website in the chat if you're, you know, curious about her political platform, as she is running for office right now. And definitely take this opportunity while it's in your mind. Think about how you can get involved. So now I would like to introduce our moderator for the evening, Representative Joan Meschino. She serves the 3rd Plymouth District in the Massachusetts State Legislature. And before that, she was a lawyer who specialized in criminal defense and civil rights, I believe. So she's here with us tonight. She has a lot to say. You know, I know that she is committed to helping people on the South Shore through legislative action, and it's something that Representative Meschino feels really passionately about. So I will turn it over to her.
Oh, thank you so much, Brianna. I'm delighted to be with everyone tonight. You know, and thank you for doing this. I think that inspiring public service and volunteerism, whatever the form it comes in, is actually something that's really important. I'm actually a lawyer and a nonprofit executive, and public service has actually always been super important to me and very much a part of my life. I can remember tagging around after my father when I was young, when he first ran for a local office. And ever since then, I just thought, this is what people do. And it takes on different forms. Service can take on different forms at different points in your life, when you have different bandwidths and different experiences. And I would recommend to everybody to step forward in your local community or on broader platforms and stages. You will find it incredibly rewarding, and I have enjoyed and continue to enjoy public service tremendously. Honestly, as a woman, you know, I feel that I owe much of my success and my opportunity to women that have walked the path before me. They've pushed it pretty far, and that generation ahead of me, and I feel that I have a responsibility and a duty to push even further down the line. And I'm very excited to be presenting tonight and to have so many young people on this Zoom, because you're the next generation, and I think that you know, whatever I can do to inspire your public engagement and your public service, I'm happy to do that. I think that you guys are just a wonderful as a generation. You think globally and you act locally, and I just think that's such a tremendous combination. And I guess I really think you're going to tackle the problems of the world. And I would encourage you all to be inspired by what you hear tonight, and to be fearless. I do just want to note that we have a couple of special guests before I turn it back over. I noticed in the attendees that we have Linda Broadford, who is a Democratic State Committee woman. I saw on the list of attendees Michael Grafton, who is the South Shore Democratic Caucus secretary, I think. I thought I saw Doug Henry on there, who is also one of the co-chairs with Celia Nolan, who's helping to run this tonight. And I believe Jessica Laverty is on there, who is one of Senator Markey's organizers. And certainly, last but not least, I think I see Colleen Brearley, who is also a candidate running for the Norfolk Register of Probate. So I just wanted to make sure we noticed all of you and to welcome all of you. So I'm going to turn it back over to Brianna. And I think she has a video and is going to let each of the panelists speak. But when we come back and convene, I'm hoping that we'll have a really good conversation on a little bit about what's inspired each of you to step forward, and just a little bit about your experience, and we'll take it from there. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Brianna.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, I would like to first introduce Sabrina Holland as a panelist. Sabrina is an organizer of the Plymouth Women's March that happened recently in Plymouth. She most recently has also been promoting issues such as climate, the border camps, and racial justice. So Sabrina, if you would like to just talk about your experiences and anything you would like to kind of say to the audience, that would be great. Take it away.
Cool. Thank you so much, Brianna. It is so exciting to be here with all of you. My name is Sabrina Holland. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I live in Marshfield, but I'm so excited that we're having this level of collaboration here. As Meg and as Representative Joan Meschino was alluding to before, you don't need experience to know how to stand up for what is right, and I think that this audience really signifies that. So, I didn't grow up in a wealthy or powerful family. My father grew up in South Boston, where his zip code was supposed to determine his destiny. And he also struggled with substance prevention and abuse. My mother grew up traveling around in a military family, but they had always been involved in political affairs and getting involved in their community. And that's what really inspired me, because every day gets harder for working families like mine to get by. The rent goes up, healthcare covers less, and our income stays the same. It's clear that these changes haven't been for us. And if we don't see these changes, then we have to get involved and create some good trouble, like John Lewis said. So I'll just tell you quickly a little bit about what I'm involved in, and then maybe we can kind of dive into those points later on as Rep. Joan Meschino is moderating. So I am involved on the Marshfield Facts Committee, which is a committee that serves substance prevention and abuse. I also serve on the Marshfield Black Lives Matter Committee with Tyler, who is also here tonight. I also serve on the Marshfield Pride Project, South Shore Democratic Caucus, South Shore Women's Political Caucus, and a plethora of other committees. I love getting involved in my community. I've led women's marches, as Brianna has alluded to. I also have participated in vigils for immigrants, women's rights, definitely, the environment, especially with the Weymouth compressor station, as I have some family members that live in Weymouth. So even though I'm young, I just turned 20 today, so I got another year on me. I do bring, a different perspective and a good level of experience that I'm excited to share. Again, I am so excited to be here with all of you, and I genuinely look forward to this conversation because you're all the future, and I have no doubt in my mind that I am talking to future councilwomen and congresswomen and state reps. So this is really exciting, and I just want to thank Brianna and everyone again for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. I would also just like to say, on top of being here on her birthday, Sabrina was also an organizer for this event, and she helped put this together. So thank you so much for that, and thank you for spending your birthday with us. We're so glad you're here. And the next panelist I would like to invite to come speak is Katie Milligan. She is an intern for Meg Wheeler. She helped organize the Black Lives Matter protests. She is a Spanish translator, and she does relational organizing through student clubs. So Katie, if you would like to speak to your experiences.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. This is like such an honor to be here. It's my first webinar or whatever this is, so this is like wild, and I hope I'm doing it right. So yeah, like Brianna said, my name's Katie. My pronouns are she, hers. I am a junior at Mount Holyoke College out in Western Massachusetts. My majors are anthropology and Spanish. As Meg alluded to in the chat, and Sabrina as well, because of COVID, I decided to take a semester off this fall, so I had the honor of working on Meg Wheeler's campaign, which has been super fun. I actually just got off a phone banking session, so shameless plug, please help us out. The next couple of days, we're going to have phone banking and text banking sessions every 2 hours. So hit up megwheeler.com. Also this fall, I've had the pleasure of doing some remote qualitative public health research with a researcher from Wright State University on how people who use opioids are able to recover, and visualize the barriers and helping things for their recovery. So that's been super interesting as well. I think kind of alluding to what Meg was talking about before about different kind of mechanisms and avenues for activism, I would say my avenue is much more like the social work, the volunteerism, the community organizing, that sort of thing. So as Brianna alluded to, I have been pretty active in local Black Lives Matter protests in Scituate, the South Shore, and also in Boston. And those have been really powerful. It's really amazing to find that kind of like-minded, progressive, social change seeking community here in the South Shore that I feel like I haven't experienced for all of my life being here. And so also I have worked as a tutor for adult English learners that are immigrants, primarily from the Middle East, Africa, and Latin America. I'm fluent in Spanish, so I've been doing some translation of documents for asylum seekers, including birth certificates, things like that. And I've also worked as a tutor for young students in Holyoke, which is a primarily Puerto Rican community. So just trying to use my ability to speak Spanish, my privilege, my connections at Mount Holyoke to be able to serve the community around me. And so I feel like on that note, my priority in terms of activism is kind of the more interpersonal stuff. Making sure that, progressive policies are so important and they're such an important avenue for social change, but also standing up for those communities in those interpersonal conversations that you have, standing up for them when tragedies like George Floyd's murder and most recently the murder that just happened this past weekend, making sure that we're standing out with these people, using our voices and our bodies for showing up for social change and showing solidarity, and creating that kind of global community for a world that we imagine. And so, yeah, I feel like that's kind of all I have. I'm really excited for the Q&A session and to get to know these panelists. And thank you so much again for having me. It's an honor.
Thank you so much for being here. I would also just like to say Katie is from Scituate, so she is our panelist here from Scituate tonight. And we're really excited that you could be here. And I'm glad you touched upon phone banking. I can guarantee that that is not the last time everyone will be hearing about the wonders of phone banking tonight. And that's just one of the many ways that you mentioned and that everyone will be hearing about how to get involved, how all of our panelists have been involved. And we're really excited to continue talking about it. So now we are going to hear from Derek Ricks, who is also from Marshfield, same as Sabrina. And they started out on their own, just them, doing standouts. And now they organize weekly standouts covering the Coles Hill area opposite of Plymouth Rock. So Derek is unable to attend today, but has sent us a video, and we are going to play it to hear what motivated them to public action. So we're going to pull up that video now, and you will all get to hear from Derek. So just while we pull up that video, I'd just like to correct something. Derek is actually from Plymouth, and we do have two panelists here tonight from Marshfield. That would be Tyler and Sabrina. And we are pulling up that video now. I am seeing questions come up in the Q&A, which is great. Feel free to submit those before the Q&A if something comes to mind, especially you can address them to specific panelists, or you can ask general questions, which is probably better because then anyone can answer them. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. I believe we are ready to go. So I don't believe that the audio is working at this time. Um, let's see if we can just. Well, while we figure that out, I'm going to introduce the next panelist. So we have Tyler Solomon. So Tyler is from Marshfield, as I said. He is on the Marshfield Democratic Town Committee, which is committed to engaging the community in politics and the issues that we care about. Tyler, would you like to speak more about the committee and about yourself and your engagement?
Of course, thank you so much for having me on this panel. Sabrina was able to get me into discussing more on politics in Marshfield, and she and I together with following members of the Marshfield Town Committee were able to conduct a vigil for George Floyd, which I thought was very necessary. And I noticed such a divide though because of it when it came to protests and people speaking out for George Floyd. There were people for Blue Lives Matter and Black Lives Matter. And I see necessary, like why people support both. Obviously, I'm more for Black Lives Matter, and I have to remind myself that Marshfield isn't really a town of diversity or understanding what other minorities would go through. So that's why I was happy to be able to speak on some of these issues, because I feel that this town specifically lives in a bubble and can't really relate to how others in this country deal with issues. And getting more involved.
You are so correct.
Thank you.
No, please continue speaking. Yes.
I'm thinking just getting more involved in politics. I feel like it's very important, because it's just like, I think for years, people always say never talk about politics. If you're like a Democrat, then all Republicans are bad, and that's vice versa. But it just gets to a point where it's so much division where I just don't think it's any good for anybody. And we need to start having these discussions on things you agree with people or even disagree with people.
You are completely right. And I don't mean to cut you off. If you have anything else you want to say, please feel free to. But you are so right. We can't really be divided on these issues that are so important, and they do need action. And so it's great that everyone's here tonight to talk about it. And I'm thankful for all the work that you do. So we're really glad that you could be here with us.
Thank you again for having me. And like I said, I love talking about politics. I work at a restaurant, and this woman and I, she's very Republican, pro-Trump, this and that. And she and I had some discussions, and I think she was able to see things more through like the other point of view. And like, I didn't necessarily agree with her, but we still managed to have a peaceful conversation. It wasn't any, hair pulling.
That's good. I think that's a more unique experience to have these days, and it's a really valuable one. So maybe later on, if anyone has any questions about it, you'll also be able to speak more to like how to engage with people. That's something I'm wondering, how to kind of engage with people that you don't necessarily agree with, and how to get people to care about these issues. So something to think on.
Yeah.
I would now like to introduce another panelist. We have Liz Reardon here tonight, who is on the Young Democrats of Massachusetts, and she is a representative from their board. Liz, if you would like to come on, speak to your experiences and anything you'd like to share with our audience tonight. I think you're on mute, by the way.
Sorry, I have to unmute. Thank you. Thanks, Brianna. Pleasure to be here. I'm Liz Reardon, she, hers, from Weymouth. I've been involved in varying ways in activism for some time now. I kind of got my start in community organizing back in 2005. I grew up in California, so I was involved in community organizing and a lot of local and international community service projects through Rotary. So I was elected the president of San Francisco Rotaract back in 2007. And when I moved out here, that was my lead in to the community here and how I found my friends, and actually found my husband through Boston Rotaract too. So through service projects and organizing, I found the love of my life. So very, very happy for that, obviously. But I've always been politically engaged, but didn't really turn my focus of my activism and organizing into that realm really until the 2015 primary. Seeing what was at stake in the presidential election and for the 2016 presidential election really activated me. So I got involved in the presidential primary. And obviously the general election itself. So after November 8th of 2016, in a brief period of mourning, I sucked it up and said, all right, it's done. I need to refocus my energies and really, really get involved in the political scene. So I immediately jumped into my Weymouth Democratic Town Committee that March in 2017. I became an associate member that November. I'm proud to now be a full voting member. I was on the 2020 ballot, so I'm now a voting member of my town committee. So it's wonderful to be engaged in the community of Democrats here in Weymouth. It's such a great group of wonderful people. It's a really good learning experience. There's a lot of good energy and experience to learn from there. So I immediately got involved in South Shore Young Democrats as well. So I joined the executive board in May of 2016 and served as the vice chair of Young Dems for a couple of years. Also jumped into organizing the South Shore chapter of We the People Massachusetts, which is involved in overturning Citizens United. And then in February of 2018, I was elected the co-chair of Our Revolution Massachusetts. So that took up most of my time. And all of this is pre-baby. So I just had a baby last year. So the multiple organizational involvement has definitely died down. And now I'm proud to serve as the Young Democrats of Massachusetts female identifying rep on the Massachusetts Democratic State Committee. So that is now my sole focus on the political scene so that I can see my son and help balance the family life as well. So definitely went full steam ahead for some time, much to the dismay sometimes of my husband, but he's been a wonderful support. I'm very, very grateful. But yes, and so that's a little bit about my history and where I am now. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your dedication, your commitment, and for being here tonight with us. And I would now like to introduce Chris Matthews, who again, we already know Chris Matthews as the chair of the South Shore Democratic Caucus, but now I'd also like to invite you to speak more about other things you do. I know that you're also a founding board member of Progressive Massachusetts, so we'd love for you to talk more about that opportunity.
Sure. Sorry, I've got the audio playing next to me. So I got involved in a political campaign for the first time in 2008. I was a freshman at Bentley and Waltham and got involved with the Young Dems, or the College Dems, to make phone calls for President Obama's first election. And I had a professor, we had really small class sizes, which was awesome, and a good relationship with our professors. And I remember on election night, after it had been declared that Obama was our next president, I emailed my professor and said, what do I do next? Like, where do we channel this energy? And she was a member at the time of the Cambridge Democratic City Committee. And she said, find your town committee, get involved. And I ignored her advice and didn't do that. And then in 2009, I remember sitting on my couch and seeing the news that Senator Kennedy had passed away. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to get involved. There's going to be a primary race. I'm going to get involved. And I got involved on then Congressman Mike Capuano's campaign. Worked my heart out for that. He lost, switched over, supported Martha Coakley. She lost. It was really hard. But the first thing I did after she lost is I went and joined the Situate Democratic Town Committee and got involved there, ended up as the vice chair a couple of years later. And in 2010, we had a bunch of contested races for all kinds of candidates, all kinds of races. And there was an opening for the 10th Congressional District, which at the time went from Quincy to the Cape. And I thought, this is another race I want to get involved in. I want to have a say in who my congressman's going to be. So met the candidates and opted to go with the most progressive candidate, who was Bill Keating, who was the district attorney at the time. Progressive since he first started in public office in 1976, anti-death penalty, pro-LGBT rights, pro-choice, before it was cool, before it was the right, before everybody recognized it was the right thing to do. He was those things when it was tough. So was excited to get involved in that race, held a sign, made phone calls, did everything I could. And then after the primary, his campaign reached out and asked me to interview for a field organizer position, which I didn't want at all. I remember I went into the interview and I left my glasses in the car and had my sunglasses on and didn't even bother to take them off because I didn't want the job. I didn't care. So interviewed with the next congressman from the district with my sunglasses on, just not caring, and didn't get the job, didn't care, didn't want it. And then a couple of days later, they called me and said, actually, we need someone to be our tracker, which meant I followed our opponent around for a month and a half with a video camera. 10 years ago this weekend, Joe Biden was in Quincy campaigning for Bill Keating. I was at the Scituate Rotary, where Katie's making change now. I was at the Scituate Rotary surrounded by Republicans. I had one of them take a swing at me with a sign. So my happy memory of Joe Biden coming to the South Shore was getting hit with a sign in Scituate. But it was crazy times. Once that campaign was over, we won. Bill Keating was one of 9 Democrats, Democratic freshmen elected in 2010. It was a red wave year. It was awful. Millions and millions of dollars were spent in the district. And again, on election night, it was like, where do I channel this energy? So I had been all over Twitter at the time and ended up connecting with Harmony Wu, who is the founder of Progressive Massachusetts. Got involved with Progressive Massachusetts, and we did a lot of great stuff early on, including becoming a 501c4 and incorporating and all kinds of other stuff. So I was on that founding board. I did have to take a step back in 2013 because I found I was spreading myself too thin. But since then, I've been involved in everything I possibly can, overextending myself. I took a job in Congressman Keating's official office in 2016 and have been there since. I serve as his, I'm the outreach director and district communications director for the congressman, which is a great honor. I served as field director on his campaign in 2012 and 2014. So a lot of great experience there. I've been involved in every campaign on the South Shore that has asked me for help since. Had a lot of fun working to try and keep Bob Hedlund from becoming the mayor of Weymouth. That didn't work out, but it was great to support a great Dem there. And have just been involved everywhere I can. I was elected to the Democratic State Committee to represent the Plymouth and Norfolk District in 2016, re-elected in 2020. I've been the chair of the South Shore Democratic Caucus now for 2 years, was elected in 2019. Served a brief stint as chair of the Southeastern Massachusetts Young Dems, which was, and we were chartered by the Young Dems Massachusetts, and we tried to get it off the ground, and we had about 5 people, and it just didn't work. But I'm really happy now to see all the great work that South Shore Young Dems are doing and the various chapters around the Southeast region. And it's really exciting to see that. And I think that, after that failed, I went on to join the Plymouth County Democratic League. So I figured if we can't get the young Dems to work, might as well just take it over from the adults. So a friend of mine, Brian Dunn, who many of you might know, he and I joined the Plymouth County Democratic League and kind of helped to run that for a while. And I took a step back from that after serving as treasurer for, I think, 5 years. I took a step back from that to become chair of the South Shore Democratic Caucus PAC. So I was not prepared to speak tonight, so I hope that kind of covers who I am and what I do. And back to you, Brianna.
No, thank you for sharing your story with us. It just goes to show that there are so many levels to engagement, and you seem to have been involved on many levels. And I really liked the point that you said about channeling your energy kind of, post-election. We have to realize that these issues don't stop or start at the polls. And so that's something to keep in mind. Like, how do we stay engaged after this election, especially if the outcome isn't favorable or it is favorable? What do we do? Because we can't just stop. So that's something to definitely remember. Now I would like to invite Chris to share the video of Derek if he has that, I believe. I do think that we have solved the video issue. I have introduced all of the live panelists for this evening at this point. So we will have two videos, I assume, one from Congressman Stephen Lynch and one from Derek Ricks. So if those are able to be up, we will share the Derek one first.
So before I get going, I want to first thank everyone taking part in this awesome Zoom webinar and to thank everyone watching at home. I hope you're all safe and healthy in these absolutely crazy times. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Derek Ricks. As I've said many times before, I'm going to cut right to the chase. I am, in fact, a heterosexual white man in the United States of America. I acknowledge that it has granted me many privileges throughout my life. I have never been oppressed due to the color of my skin, my sexual identity, or who I've chosen to fall in love with. However, I feel my greatest privilege is that I am able to stand and march with so many who are all in agreement that Black Lives Matter, that it's your body, therefore it is your choice, that love is love, and honestly, enough is enough. I have always supported equality, inclusion, and equal justice under the law for all Americans. I was vocal of my support on social media in the past. I attended the occasional rally or protest in Boston. Other than that, I went about my privileged life, going through the motions without thought of how it honestly could be different if I wasn't who I was. As I believe it was the same for many across this nation, and in fact the world, that all came to a head when I watched George Floyd tortured for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, calling out for his mother before his eventual death. Since that day, I've hit the ground running and have been working to learn how to apply myself as a deafeningly loud ally, to fight for those who do not have the same privileges as me, and to fight to see that they do in fact become equal. Back in July, I watched a video of a fairly large Trump rally in front of Plymouth Rock. One Trump supporter was filmed stomping on a Black Lives Matter sign. Later that same week, the event's organizer live-streamed herself harassing a group of landscapers because they were speaking in Spanish, declaring that they're supposed to speak English because they're in America. The following week, there was yet another Trump rally in front of Plymouth Rock. I went alone to stand across the street on Coles Hill with my Black Lives Matter sign and my rainbow peace flag to denounce such hatred. That afternoon, I met two individuals that were on Coles Hill for the same exact reasons. Two individuals that I am now happy to call my friends. Since that day, I've worked on social media to bring awareness to our counter-protest. I've attended standouts, protests, and rallies in Braintree, Hingham, Scituate, Bridgewater, all throughout the South Shore. While I continued to make friends, I also networked organizers with each other and brought interest to Coles Hill in Plymouth. What started out as 3 people continued to grow week after week. Every Saturday, more came to Coles Hill to stand with us. As it continued to grow, I was even honored with the opportunity to help organize the Plymouth Women's March, which took place the 17th of this month. This past Saturday, we had upwards of 200 in attendance, an absolute ocean of Black Lives Matter signs, rainbow peace flags, pride and progress flags, transgender and non-binary flags, and American flags. 200 individuals of varying age, race, and sexual identity taking a stand. Perfect strangers all coming together to demand we all deserve to be equal. In a few short months, I've stepped into quite the spotlight as I've been credited with building this presence on Coles Hill. It's been an incredible experience seeing the love and the passion these 2 hours every Saturday afternoon have brought out of the local communities. However, personally, I feel I have still not done nearly enough. I will continue to learn how to best apply myself as an ally and to bring that passion out of others to demand that we all deserve to be equal. To wrap it up, I first want to invite you all to Coles Hill this Saturday. By no means do I believe this will be the last Saturday standout. However, it is the last before November 3rd. We feel this will be a culmination of the last few months we have spent on Coles Hill. I also want to recommend the Facebook group Indivisible Plymouth if you are looking to become more active in Plymouth. Indivisible Plymouth is in fact a subgroup of the Indivisible movement, which works to resist the GOP's agenda, elect local champions, and fight for progressive policies. Towns throughout the South Shore, such as Marshfield, Hingham, and Duxbury, also have Indivisible subgroups. Also, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Representative Joe Meschino and State Senate Representative candidate Meg Wheeler. Keep doing what you're doing and keep fighting the good fight. Thank you. I love you all. Thanks.
A huge thank you to Derek if they are watching this on demand. Thank you for sending in that video and being a part of tonight's webinar. You made a lot of really great points, and I'm hoping that they are things that we readdressed in the Q&A portion with our other panelists. I would also just like to introduce one final panelist who spoke earlier. Melissa Shapiro from the South Shore Young Democrats is a very active person, and I would love for her to come on and share more about her experiences and being a part of the South Shore Young Democrats and other organizations. You know, how do you stay involved, and all the things that you'd like to share with the attendees.
Hi, thank you so much. So as Brianna says, I do wear a lot of different hats right now. So in addition to being the chair of the South Shore Young Dems, so that means I'm a member of the board of the Young Democrats of Massachusetts. I'm also involved in the Young Democrats of America with the Disability Issues Caucus, where I'm the first vice chair. I'm currently the secretary of the Young Democrats of Massachusetts Disability Caucus. And I'm also a Democratic State Committee member, first time, for the Norfolk and Plymouth Caucus, so just to the north of the South Shore Caucus officially, where I'm part of the Disability Outreach Subcommittee. And I'm also a member of the Quincy Ward 3 Democratic Ward Committee, where I'm vice chair. And I was recently elected for the Quincy Democratic City Committee, the female vice chair. And so this is not my career. This is what I like to call my unpaid second job. So I'm a statistician at an area safety net hospital, which absolutely shares my progressive values, which is super important to me. So what motivated me to public action? So I was actually raised a Republican by my father, but soon after leaving home, discovered I was actually a Democrat. So at least I can say I've always voted Democrat. I'm also an Army brat. So growing up, I lived all over the country. I went to college at the University of Texas at Dallas, where I was a Eugene McDermott scholar, which basically was to tell us to do everything we possibly could and be just super overachievers. And I did get involved with the college Dems there, but kind of drifted out after the 2004 election because it was a little sad for me. So from actually 2008, I was living overseas for graduate school in the United Kingdom, where I developed several health issues, which led to the disability that is what I'm involved with now. So I was actually there until 2016 when I had to leave and landed in Massachusetts and moved to Quincy to work in Boston. And so when I saw Brexit happen, which is related to why I had to leave the UK, I knew I had to help get Hillary Clinton elected. So that's how I spent my summer and fall of 2016 at the Mass Dems Boston headquarters for her campaign. So at least I helped win New Hampshire. So immediately after that, I got involved with the Women's March, which allowed me to develop some of my craftivism skills, knitting and making signs, and had gone to DC for that march. And I actually started a local Women's March huddle, which is now the great progressive organization, March Forward Quincy. I saw on Facebook that the Mass Dems were holding a Democratic State Committee meeting, and I just showed up, not knowing that it was a big official thing. And so there, fortunately, I happened to sit next to a person who was who had grown up like involved with the party. And so she told me, one, to get involved in my city and ward committee, and two, to check out the Young Dems. And I actually ran over to introduce myself to the then president of the Young Democrats in Massachusetts. So that's how I helped start the brand new Young Dems chapter for the South Shore in early 2017. And shortly after that, I was elected as the YDMA membership and outreach director, so a member of their executive board. So I had to take a step back from leadership role in March Forward Quincy, but I'm so very proud of that group and what they've been doing in Quincy. So I've also gotten involved with a lot of disability advocacy. And so from there, I've just been loud, stubborn, and showed up and just refused to stop. So that's mine.
Oh my gosh, thank you. No kidding, you really do wear a lot of hats. We are so grateful that you could be here tonight to share your experience with us and to answer our questions. Now, before we move on to the Q&A, just to wrap up this introduction section, we do have a message from Congressman Stephen Lynch. This is a surprise to all of our attendees. He has created a video that we are going to play for you that will be played by Chris Matthews, if you are able to pull it up. The congressman has been serving in the U.S. House of Representatives since 2001, and he represents most of the South Shore. I believe everyone on this call tonight should be within his jurisdiction. So we are all constituents of the congressman. And so it's really great to see him showing up and offering some words of wisdom for this event and for the young people of the South Shore and beyond. And we'll see what we can take away from it. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm pleased to be joining you on this webinar. It's happening here, Progressive Youth Activism on the South Shore. First of all, I want to thank Lillian Whalen from Hull. I want to give her a shout out. I really appreciate the opportunity to participate. Lillian and I first met when I spoke at the Hull Black Lives Matter event. It was a huge success. I did have the opportunity to speak at about maybe 10 different Black Lives Matter events in the towns across my district, but Hull, even though it was one of the smaller towns, had one of the largest turnouts, especially among the young people in Hull. So thank you for that. I also want to say thank you for the massive vote I received in the Democratic primary. Thank you. Across all the towns in the South Shore, we averaged about 75% of the vote, and we had a record turnout in the middle of a pandemic, mind you. So I'm really thankful for that. It was heartwarming. Thank you. You couldn't have a better moderator than my friend, Representative Joan Meschino, to talk with the young people here. In spite of the pandemic, Representative Meschino and I remain in regular contact. We were together just recently. Joan is working hard for you at the State House, and she is always available for the people in her district. Great representative. I know we have a bunch of towns on this webinar, so I wanted to just be clear which ones I represent. So I'm the representative for the 8th Congressional District. My friend Bill Keating is further south towards the Cape and the islands, so just south of me. But I represent portions of Plymouth County, Suffolk County, Norfolk, and Bristol counties. Many of the people on this webinar today live in the 8th Congressional District, and we need you to be involved. As the organizers of this event can attest, if there are issues that you believe in, really care about, you can make a difference. Whether it's environmental justice, we've been fighting this compressor station in Weymouth forever. It's been back and forth, so we could use your help on that. Gender equity and economic justice issues, racial justice and equity issues in our society. Like the title of this webinar says, it's all happening here. Right now, this nation is in the midst of a crisis because of President Donald Trump. He has been an unmitigated disaster. He has sowed division in this country that we've never seen before. He's continually undermining the integrity of the federal government and the departments of our government as laid out in the Constitution. And as a member of the Congressional Oversight Committee, while I regard impeachment as a very serious matter, I did faithfully attend the deposition of witnesses in that case, and I did forcefully cast my vote to impeach President Trump and remove him from office. He, in my opinion, remains the single greatest threat to our constitutional democracy. So that's what's at stake on November 3rd. We've seen what young people can do for grassroots movement. I was in Hull, as I said, this past June. I spoke at that rally for racial justice, and it was a wonderful, spirited event. One of the organizers, again, was Lillian Whalen, my friend, a 19-year-old from Hull. She's attending Hartwick College, and she's part of today's webinar leadership. And she is just one example of the power that you all can have to make a transformative change when you work together. Other panelists you'll be hearing from today are taking up leadership roles as well to make a big difference, like Melissa Shapiro, the chair of the South Shore Young Democrats, Katie Mulligan, who's also an event organizer, Tyler Solomon, a member of the Democratic Town Committee, Liz Reardon, a South Shore Young Democrat representative, and Chris Matthews, who's done a ton of work and is a founding board member of Progressive Massachusetts. I also want to mention Derek Ricks of Plymouth and Sabrina Holland from Marshfield. Sabrina is so dedicated that she's spending her 20th birthday with us right now. So happy birthday, Sabrina. All of these panelists here have brought awareness to their communities, some working directly through political action, others in student groups and volunteering for causes that are just near and dear to their hearts. For the past few weeks of this election, I've been dedicating as much time as I can possibly give to the ongoing presidential race. And last night, believe it or not, I spoke at an ironworkers union meeting in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Local 8. I'm a former ironworker myself, and I worked out of Local 8 when I was strapping on the work boots every single day. I'm also a former union president, so it was a perfect way for me, in my capacity, to explain to working people why working people should be voting for Joe Biden. So I'd encourage everyone listening to sign up for at least one phone bank this week. One of the best and most effective grassroots actions that people can take is phone banking. When we call someone, when you speak to them and remind them to vote, you tell them about our candidate, you make another connection on a large switchboard of demanding change, right? There are races across the country that need your help. While I've been asked to focus on Wisconsin by the Biden campaign, that's because I worked there for several years ago. I also attended the University of Wisconsin, and I've got a bunch of contacts there. I got some requests from Georgia and Pennsylvania just this morning. They need our help. And you can sign up to volunteer right now. You go to mobilize.us to find action that you can take every day to impact the results of this election. Now, action goes beyond just listening to the panelists today, although that's a great start. It's about showing up and putting in the work. I'm in that with you and for you, but it's going to take all of us, right? So when you're at an event like this, when you're phone banking, when you're on your way to the polls, tell people, invite friends to join you and increase this network of action that is being built. Make sure you're asking everyone, what is your plan to vote? And please encourage them as well to visit mobilize.us to pick a day, pick a time, if you're going to do the phone banks, to sit down and make a real impact on the results of this election. If there's one thing I want you to know is this: you have no idea how powerful you are. Like I say, I attended about 10 of those Black Lives Matter events on the towns. You know, I'm going back and forth from DC, but I was able to attend about 10 of them in different towns: Hull, Abington, Norwood, Canton, Situate. So all across my district. And I was so impressed by the energy and the thoughtfulness, the passion, and the articulate message that young people have. I've sometimes referred to them as the new abolitionists, right? Because the abolitionists who were against slavery were a small but vocal group that persuaded a lot of other people to the rightness of their cause. That's what the young people are today. They are calling people out on all these different issues, whether it's the environment or racial justice or gender equity. You know, they're really the leading voice. You're making the change, and it has a huge impact on people in my generation and other elected officials. So please know that you matter, your voice matters, and we need you. We need you to step up, and we welcome your participation. You can make a difference. You can speak to people that I cannot, you know, like very young people. your peers. I think your message is much more effective than having an adult, someone my age, let's say, speaking to young people. So there's an opportunity there for you to bring your experience. Just like I brought my experience to the ironworkers, you can bring it to young people your age and bring that message in a great way. We don't want to be thinking about all the things we could have done, but we didn't on the day after the election, right? So every call matters, every person matters, every vote matters. I want to thank you again for inviting me to be with you today. Thank you, Lillian. It's been an honor to speak with you and all of your colleagues. I hope you continue to make a big impact on your communities, not only until Election Day, but beyond Election Day as well. So I wish you and your families a very safe and joyous Thanksgiving. I want to thank you for being involved. I want to thank Representative Joan Meschino again for your leadership and friendship. Please enjoy the rest of the webinar. And remember, vote Biden-Harris. And I'm also on the ballot. If you could be so kind as to please consider me for your vote as well. Thank you. Again, enjoy this great webinar. Bye now.
Thank you so much to Congressman Lynch for putting that video together and sending that in. It's really great to see leaders who hold office, being present at these events, listening and fighting for the things that matter to their constituents. We really, really appreciate that video and the words that you said. And I think that you are absolutely right. It is, if there's something that everyone can take away from this webinar, it's about putting in the work. It's about showing up and taking action. And so I just want everyone to know that, like, what you're hearing tonight, these activists, these representatives, everyone is taking action, and we're trying to build on the progress that's being made for these issues that we care about. And so, I want you all to feel like your representatives are listening, we are listening, and we are all taking action collectively. So I hope that we continue to kind of build off of this political network that we are building here tonight and in general. So with that being said, I'd like to invite our moderator, Representative Joan Meschino, to come back on, and we will take it away with the Q&A with all of our panelists, who can also turn your cameras on.
Oh, thank you so much, Brianna. I just wanted to say, as everyone's starting to come back on, and give them a second to get their technology squared away, that it's wonderful to hear about all of your advocacy, each and every one of you, and to hear you talk about the things that you do and the things that have inspired you. I can just say that you have all inspired me. I'd say the theme through here was the energy and the excitement and the engagement in each of your voices. And even though you're all doing, different things and coming to it in different ways, I wanted to sort of share, sort of echo what Congressman Lynch was saying at the end, that your voice does matter. And the most basic expression of that is to vote. Every single person should vote. And there's no excuses not to, because we can absentee ballot, we can vote early, we can mail in our votes, we can go down to the polls. We have intentionally made it very easy, and your voice matters. And the most basic way to do that is to vote. And so I just wanted to thank the Congressman for his words as well. They're very inspiring. So we had a couple of questions in the Q&A. But before we get to that, one of the things that Congressman Lynch was talking about was really engagement. And I'd like to ask the panelists, how do you engage your peers? It's for the higher up that you get in the, or I should say in government, the more people you actually represent and the harder it is to stay connected. And I'd just like to know, how do each of you engage with your peers around your own activism? And I don't see anyone raising their hands, so I'm going to start randomly with Liz because she happens to be in the center of my screen.
Oh, goodness. I guess when it comes to engagement with my peers, I would say I have every text messaging application available on my phone. I admittedly have taken a step back from Facebook because I get a little bit too involved in the news reel that comes through and I get a little heated. So yeah, that's, really keeping those personal connections. I've met some amazing people through my journey locally on the South Shore and across the state. And, supporting them in their efforts, helping promote activities and things they have going on, just really keeping connected that's some of the things that I try to do.
Katie, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure. So I guess one of the main tools that I've been using, specifically, with all of the kind of racial reckoning that's been happening this summer, social media is such a powerful tool. And I feel that a lot of my own personal self-education, inner reflection about my own white privilege, my own role in this system, and my own role in this social change, social movement is coming from a lot of the voices that have already been speaking about this for a long time, but are just now getting the platform and the audience for it. It's long overdue, but there's some really incredible creators, content creators on Instagram, I know, Twitter for sure. And there's also a ton of really awesome organizations. I'm thinking of the Freedom Fighters Coalition in Boston. They've been organizing a ton of things, marches, demonstrations, that sort of thing. So there are a lot of really awesome groups that have been fighting for these causes for a long time. And so engaging peers is kind of, creating those social networks, whether in person or virtual, especially, COVID, everything's kind of virtual. And then I would also say in terms of, having interpersonal contact with other people, I'm a member of Mount Holyoke College's cross-country and track and field teams. And we've been having a lot of discussions about how we can educate ourselves and create an anti-racist culture in our team. So one of the ways that we're doing that is by creating a book club that we have every Monday, and each person takes a turn choosing a podcast, a chapter of a book, an article, that sort of thing that we watch, and then we come together and we just have this conversation about, does it make us think about anything, reflect on anything about our own role in those things, kind of creating that space for us to have really difficult conversations with people that, we may not have had these conversations before, and creating a space where we can successfully hold each other accountable and create that kind of culture. So, different mechanisms for those things, but I would say those are my main ways of doing that.
Now, Sabrina, you were nodding along during the middle of Katie's talk. What did you want to add to that?
Yeah, a couple of things. Thank you. I'm just so engaged, so excited to be here. So if you see me nodding a lot, it's just because I'm I love this. I can't talk right now, but I love what you're saying. I would definitely say that social media is a way where I can engage with my peers, especially through TikTok. It's okay, if you've never voted before, I'll make a TikTok dance and tell you how to vote. But if you voted for it and you want to see my bad dancing, it's worth it. I would also just say meeting young people and students where they're at, right? So if they're mad about, racial injustice and Black Lives Matter, it's okay, I'll support you and I'll support how you're feeling, but let's channel those emotions into positive action. So for example, in Marshfield, we're a purple district, but we have a lot of change that we need to make. And a lot of students, got very passionate after George Floyd and Breonna Taylor were killed. But instead of, everyone just sitting there and being mad, people like Tyler and all of these, incredible people on this panel step up and get involved in their communities. And so, we host rallies for the kids. They want transgender inclusive bathrooms in their school, but they've never voted before. Okay, let's get those transgender, inclusive bathrooms in those schools. And let's also talk about the policy that is impacted, by LGBTQ plus issues on the state and federal level. Let's have these conversations. Let's talk about how when you feel unsafe in school, right, because of lockdowns, our you live in a coastal community like Marshfield or in Scituate, and you don't know if your home's gonna be there in the future. How did these issues impact you? And also just letting them know that their voice matters, and creating that environment for them to share their experiences, truly inspires me, because I don't know everything, and I'll never know everything. Like, I'm only 20, but just kind of creating that environment and creating that movement truly, ignites positive change into our communities. And it's showing, all across the
Yes, it
community.
is.
It's being shown here tonight.
Now, Tyler, you were nodding along when Sabrina was talking. What did you want to add?
Well, I just want to add that it is important to get involved and to fight for something, as long as it's for the greater good of what you believe in, and make sure that you look into how it can be done, who agrees with these certain positions, and how you can make that a reality. Because I never thought that I'd see a rally for BLM, especially in Marshfield, since it's not the most diverse town, but it happened.
It happened. That's right. Now, I'm curious, how important are mentors to each of you? Someone put in the chat, let me see. What are the ways that older generations can support younger people as they start their journey, or actually you're all kind of well on your way in your journey to being activists? So how important is mentorship to you, and what are the ways we can do that? No one wants to raise their hand and go first. I'll just call Melissa. I see Melissa Shapiro.
Yeah, I'd like to. And I also wanted to mention for the previous one, I know some folks are going off of Facebook, but Facebook is still a lifeline for me, particularly with the disabilities that I deal, that I can't physically go attend some of these things out in person, but it still allows, you just have to be careful. If it's getting too much, take a time off. But for this, actually, this is something of why I've really loved the Young Democrats, in that you mix with folks who maybe have been raised kind of by people who are involved in the party or work in the state house, and so have gotten kind of a bit of knowledge that they can kind of share to help you find out, okay, what can I do next? What can I do next? And you'll find a lot of times when you show up when stuff can be done in person again safely, that you'll see folks there going, oh, wow, we're so happy to see a young person here. But it does take a lot of stubbornness too, to being willing to just kind of to keep showing up, but also because a lot of times folks can be happy to see one here. But I mean, if there's not any openings, then you have to be in the point where you're maybe challenging someone who's maybe held a seat for ages and ages and ages in order to get on there, which can run into some issues then of trying to do finesse and working well with, because it's also lots about relationships too. So this is where, again, I've just talked about with networking with other young people or other folks who are maybe like within 10 years of you versus some older folks on the earth. And I mean, I'm thinking like, Liz, you'll probably agree with me. And the first thing in my head is like Kate Donahue, who is a stalwart of the Massachusetts Democratic Party, who is just kind of like, I see her and go like, I want to be like her. And so you can kind of follow and get advice from folks. And so that is where, that's also really helpful for kind of like, for particularly within the Democratic Party, of like kind of learning some of the niceties. So, I mean, I did take a head to the Q&A, and so wearing your wait your turn, which is something that's really, can be very frustrating. But this is where, again, finding like kind of not necessarily a champion, but someone who you can talk with and discuss things and talk about what you can do and how you can get involved to build up time and not wait so much.
Liz, did you want to add to that?
I think Melissa covered a lot. I think they're at all levels of politics, party politics, state house politics. There are people open and willing. It may take some time to find those folks that want to kind of be that mentor for you. And I would just say, be patient. Sometimes it takes time. It's not necessarily, there's no handbook on social media on these are all of the ways to do it. Sometimes you have to make your own way. And I would just say, keep trudging forward. Do not get stifled at your first pass. If you come up to any barrier, you know, there are a lot of great people out there that are willing to support you, peers. I've met so many fantastic people through Young Dems that have trudged their way through different avenues and learned so much from them. And then also, I already previously mentioned my town committee. There's people at all generations that I've learned so much from. So I would just really say branch out as much as you can, and gather information. Listen. That's my biggest advice.
Right, because there's different mentors, right, for different things. Chris, who are your mentors? You didn't think I was going to let you get away with sitting there silently, did you?
I was going to try. You know, I was worried that you were going to call on me and trying to think who my mentors are, and I think I've been lucky. You know, two people that come to mind immediately are John Bowes, who's like my activist mentor and a very, very good friend of mine, who kind of taught me the ropes of being an activist and not caring if you annoy people along the way. And then I've also been lucky to have Greg Shanahan, who was a town councilor in Weymouth, and an elected official, and kind of showing me the ropes in that direction. And he's also been a longtime political staffer, which is something that, you know, I don't have a political science degree. I wasn't involved in politics before, you know, and I just kind of jumped into this and started working for a politician. So it was really helpful to have that advice. And I think part of this question was how the new generation can, or how older generations can be more welcoming. And I think my tip on that is just be welcoming. If I hadn't been welcomed with open arms by the South Shore Democratic Town Committee and Kevin Butler, who was the chair then, if I hadn't gotten an enthusiastic email that they need new blood, if I hadn't been welcomed when I came in the room, I wouldn't have stuck around. So be welcoming. That's my biggest tip, is be welcoming.
Yeah, Tyler, you were sort of nodding along when they were talking. Who are your mentors that you're engaging with right now?
I don't really have a mentor per se. I just kind of listen to news stations and stuff like that to get good ideas on what topics are and so on and so forth, and try to make sure that you represent yourself in the best way possible, because it's so easy for someone to twist someone's words around to fit their narrative instead of your own.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, it's interesting. I think one of the reasons I always talk about multiple mentors is because as you go along in your professional life, right, don't we all evolve? And so, and people bring different talents to the table, and then we have to make it our own. So there's a couple of interesting questions in the chat, and one that I wanted to come back to, because I know it's getting on to be 8:30, but I want to hear from the panelists what is coming up in your activism that you are excited about. I'm going to start with Sabrina, because you're already bubbling. I can tell you're excited to tell us.
There's like so many different projects that I am just so excited to be involved in. It doesn't even feel like work. But I won't list them all because that's boring. But one of the really critical things that I am working on right now is an equal rights amendment for Massachusetts. Currently, we do not have one right now. And as I said before, you don't need experience to know how to stand up for what is right. So I emailed all of the, you know, state house representatives the other day, which was super intimidating. I'm like, are they even, you know, going to listen to this, you know, 19-year-old at the time? But I did get some responses, and I got responses from both sides of the aisle, and they were all really positive and incredibly excited. I created a petition today, like just literally a couple hours ago, and it almost has 500 signatures. I've gotten some shout outs on social media from some pretty cool famous people. So I'm really excited about that, especially with, you know, Amy Coney Barrett being, you know, confirmed to the Supreme Court. Massachusetts needs to stand up. We need to enact an equal rights amendment. We need to protect women's rights, and we need to fight for LGBTQ plus rights. So this is very critical, and I'm very passionate about this.
Exciting. Now, Katie, you were smiling along the way. What did you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, just shout out to Sabrina. Like that's incredible. definitely not something that I would think about doing, right away. So props to you. And that's something that, we should all get behind, making sure that those kind of legal protections are in place for all of our communities. So kudos. I would say right now I'm excited because there's some big actions happening in Boston following the election, regardless, like Brianna was alluding to earlier, regardless of the election's results, like all of these races, I'm really pulling for Meg. I'm excited to hear how that goes and get involved in the last couple of days leading up to the election. But we got to keep the momentum going, and we got to keep those different mechanisms for social change going at the same time. So there's some actions happening the day after the election. There's a protest at Nubian Square that you all should go to if you want, if you can, if that's something that you're able to do. I would also say my first year at college, I was able to do some community-based learning in Springfield, doing like tutoring, as I mentioned before, for adult immigrants in English, and they just started a program to do that virtually. So I just got matched up with my student buddy, and that's going to start really soon. So I'm excited to kind of like cultivate a relationship and do that. And then the research that I'm doing on opioid recovery, we're going to be publishing an article soon, and I'll be speaking at a conference sometime in 2021. So that's really exciting. And on the mentor point, my internship advisor has just been really incredible at leading me through like navigating academia and all that stuff, which is difficult. So yeah, I would say those are the things I'm most excited about.
How about you, Tyler?
I'm sorry, what? I just didn't hear you.
I was just asking what inspires you?
To do, well, what really inspired me is like things like BLM and situations like that, or being in a town, like I said, like Marshfield, which is I'm surprised to hear that it's purple, because I kind of expected it to be more Republican, because we've had a lot of Trump rallies at like Brant Rock and so on and so forth, or even the like all 10 voters for Trump and stuff like that. But what really motivates me is I just feel like we need change, and I know so many people who aren't involved or who says it's not important to be involved in politics, and it's like that just drives me crazy, because it's like it is so important to have like a representative, and it's usually the people who say I don't care about politics, but it's like, but I still dislike Trump, and it's like, well, why don't you vote him out? And we need to have people that like it's important that they represent our values and stuff like that, because Trump has been doing things where he could be impeached again. Like I could go off a list. He one of his hotels in Washington D.C. took money from Saudi Arabia, and he ended up doing a like $100 billion arms deal with them as they're committing a genocide in Yemen. And you never hear about that in any news stories or anything, or how he mentions how he wants to end wars, but he doesn't really do actions that end wars when he's increasing drone strikes and stuff like that. So it's just very hard, because like he will mention it from time to time, but like nobody's following up with his actions. One of them, I'm friends with a Trump supporter, and she messaged me saying that there is peace in the Middle East, and I'm like, he's getting deals signed with peace treaties from 2 countries that aren't even having any conflict. It's like, say Sabrina and I are neighbors, and Jack,
You are neighbors.
yeah, kind of. And Jack is egging her house, but Sabrina and I sign a peace treaty. Jack's still going to egg her house. Sorry, Sabrina.
We're not going to touch that one. Well, what I'd really love to know is and this comes from the chat, what are the ways that the older generations can be supportive of young people as they start their journey to be activists? What can we do to support you guys? Liz, you're in the middle. Sorry, kid. This is what happens when you smile at the moderator.
I know. I'll learn to frown, I guess. I would say that, maybe just taking that extra time to, when a new person or a young person is getting involved in a new organization or a committee, just taking that extra moment to have that personal touch and that personal outreach, offer your mentorship, and make sure that there's no outstanding questions, maybe, just offer information that, may seem trivial, but a lot of young people don't necessarily have that institutional knowledge, and really just starting at the foundation that could also help spur additional questions and just help foster that relationship. So taking that extra time when we did meet in person, showing up to the meeting early and, connecting with people one-on-one, but even, just sending an email and checking in saying, hey, what do you think about this? Is there anything you think that we could do better? And just asking those questions and looking for that additional perspective and really being accepting and proactively engaged, I guess I would say, just taking that extra moment.
Yeah. Chris, what do you think about that?
I agree. I think the networking, the getting to know the people outside of the meeting, I think that's the biggest step. I was never told to wait my turn. I never had an issue with that, but it was because I kind of quietly came in and learned the ropes and sat on the sidelines before I decided, how I was going to change the world. So yeah, the networking thing is so important, and not coming in with all of your own ideas and trying to change everything. You got to not go along to get along, but you got to just go with the flow for a little bit to see how things work, and then find small things that you can do. In 2010, when I first joined my town committee, it was like getting a website up and getting on Facebook and, piece by piece, and kind of going back to something that Chris Reardon said in the chat and Melissa backed up, the showing that you have value and showing what you have to offer. I think that's an important piece.
Mm-hmm. Katie, you're nodding along and smiling. Did you want to add to what Chris was just saying?
Yeah, I guess. I think I'm like Liz. I just kind of smile a lot, and now I'm realizing
oh, that's dangerous.
Putting a target on my back. Yeah, but I'm happy. I guess I just going off of, I guess maybe more of Liz's point. I think, showing that you're interested. I think a lot of young activism starts in the home. It starts in conversations around the dinner room table. What did I just say? Dining room table. And so, showing that whatever your child is saying is valid and worth listening to, just because you've been living on this earth longer doesn't mean that you know any better what your child is experiencing in this world, because every generation grows up differently, and this is a really tumultuous time. So the way that we're experiencing it, the way that we see the world, and the way that we see how we think the world should change is worth listening to. It's worth learning from. So just making sure that when, if you have children or if young people in your life, just giving them that time of day to let them know or show through active listening that what they're saying is important and valid, and being willing to meet them halfway and really take into consideration what they're saying.
Got it. So as I can see that the time is starting to run, and I want to get something kind of feisty out of each of you. This idea of wait your turn. I've never been one that has subscribed to that. And I'd just really love to hear something inspirational from each of you. You're all very active, you're all very engaged, you've all stepped up and sort of found your way into it. I'm gonna start with you, Sabrina, because you're in the top of my screen. But I'd just like to know, what inspires you to get out there and get going, and just thought maybe you'd like to end the chat a little bit on an inspirational note. What just one sentence. What would you like to say to people who are thinking about and young people who are thinking about getting involved? I'm going to start with you, Sabrina.
The youth is the future. And as, President John F. Kennedy once said, that the torch has been passed to a new generation. And if you see a problem in your community, and if you see that nothing's being done about it, then fix it. And you know what? If you create some good trouble, that's okay. And, some people might be intimidated. They might be like, who is this young person emailing me? And I will say, Ruth Bader Ginsburg has this great quote. Of course, I have it framed on my wall, but it says, You know, fight for what you care about and do so in a way that will lead other people to join you. And I think that's really critical, you know, when you're standing up for what's right and creating good trouble, but nevertheless, absolutely create it. Like I said before, you know, the youth is the future. We're facing a climate crisis. Our kids deserve to have inclusive bathrooms. Our union families, you know, deserve justice. We deserve healthcare and reproductive justice, #RoAct. Like, just get involved, because these problems aren't going away anywhere, and you are the future and your voice matters, and you can do this. I will be right along there to support you.
Katie, how about you?
Yeah, just to kind of echo what Sabrina just said, like, there's no better time than now to do it. You know, the more we wait on these things, you know, progressive policies are really aimed at the communities that are most affected by, you know, all the issues and inequality that's happening in our world. And those things will continue to happen the more we wait. There's no time to waste. And the climate crisis and racial justice, those things are very imminent for us. And so I think, not that this is that like peppy and inspirational, but something that does motivate me to get going is just realizing like these problems are real, they're right in our faces, and there's no time to lose. And also just listening to those that came before, there's a lot of great stuff to hear about that and kind of guide our thinking.
Yeah, Tyler, you're next in the screen. Did you want to add anything to what our colleagues have said?
Yeah, I think it's important to be involved, obviously, politically, just for all what everyone said, to fight for something that they believe in, because there is so much on the line, and I can't speak on what it is to be a woman, but I feel like that's obviously should be her choice since it's her body. And it's important, because personally, I'm more for changing the way we conduct prisons. I'm strongly against private prisons, and I feel like that should end. I don't think we have any in this state, but they're in 22 states, and I just think it's disgusting having like the more people you have in prison, the more profit you make out of it. That shouldn't be a thing. And not everyone in prison is this awful person, because some of them could be just having a drug addiction, and they aren't, throwing them in jail isn't going to resolve the problem. And then if they get out of jail, they lose rights to vote. That's not right, because they're still an American citizen. Just because you slip up once, it doesn't mean you should not have your rights anymore.
Compassion. I like that. Melissa, you're next in my screen.
Well, one thing that I have written back is that the South Shore Young Dems, we meet now virtually the first Wednesday of every month. So come join us to help get in that network here. But mostly it's be loud, show up, and just be stubborn enough so that you refuse to be turned away.
Stubborn. There's advice. I think that works pretty well.
Yeah,
Chris, now?
Stubborn but willing to compromise. Like,
Yep.
but stubborn as in you keep pushing to be there and be in the room.
Be a force. Chris Matthews.
Oh, I'm always a positive and an inspirational person, so this should be easy for me. I think my main message is vote on Tuesday, and then get involved. Get involved, whether it's with your town committee, with the Young Dems, with an indivisible group, with a BLM group in your town, or if you're a Republican, get involved in Republican organizations and try and knock some sense into them. But just get involved, because the decisions are going to be made no matter what. So just try and be in the room to help influence them.
Mm-hmm. Get involved. And last but not least, Liz, did you want to add anything inspirational before I turn it back over to Brianna to wrap us up?
Sure. I want to kind of go back to this notion of waiting your turn. There is no queue. There are way too many opportunities. There are way too many injustices in the world, and so much work that needs to be done. Get out there. Every ounce of your energy that you can dedicate to all of these injustices that we have happening is valuable, and we need you. So please get out there.
I don't think I can add anything more to those inspirational remarks. So I will turn it back over to our host, Brianna, and just say that I am super excited for the future, for the next generation, and I feel very confident that you're not only going to tackle all the problems of the world, but it sounds like you're going to solve them as well. So Brianna, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you so much. That was an absolutely phenomenal and engaging discussion. I hope that all of our panelists had a great time tonight. Thank you so much to Representative Joan Meschino for being here and for moderating. You did a fantastic job. It was great having you here, and I hope that you continue doing awesome work for our district and for the people of the South Shore. I know that we are all incredibly grateful for everyone that was able to be here tonight, including the attendees, our guest speaker, Meg Wheeler. We are so glad that you could be here. Good luck in the election to Joan Meschino and Meg Wheeler, who are both running for re-election. We wish you the best. We encourage everyone to get out and vote. That is something that you can do now to take action. Early voting is open, and there were a lot of links that were provided in the chat tonight that we will be sending out in an email to all the attendees, I believe. I do have all those links listed, so you will be getting those and more opportunities to get involved. And that is such a huge takeaway from tonight. You can all make change a reality. There is an expansive scope of things that we can do. You can vote, you can protest, you can organize, run for office, be the change you want to see in the world. I did not make that quote up. You know, you can educate people and learn from them, use social media, all sorts of different tactics that we learned tonight are things that you can take away. So when you go home tonight, or actually, I'm assuming everyone is home, there's a pandemic. But please, like when you get off this Zoom webinar, write down something that you learned tonight and that you can do this weekend to make change. That is the biggest takeaway, is that you need to take action. We all need to learn from what we're hearing, and there's something that we all care about that we can take action on today. So I highly encourage everyone to utilize something they learned, find a skill, you know, engage with people, ask questions. There were a lot of great suggestions here tonight, and everyone that we heard from, all of our panelists, you are so phenomenal. I am so impressed with all of the things that you do. I would also like to thank our co-sponsors, the South Shore Young Democrats, the South Shore Democratic Caucus, and the Hull Democratic Town Committee for putting together this webinar. I am so grateful that we could all be here, and I'm grateful that our attendees were able to stick it out, as well as our panelists and our moderator and everyone. I know it's 8:46 at night, and we are all eager to probably eat dinner if you haven't. So with that, I will wrap this up. I'd also just like to thank our organizers, Celia Nolan and Sabrina Holland. You did phenomenal. I'm so glad that we put this together. And Celia Nolan, an extra huge thank you for being our off-screen moderator. You helped keep everything together. We could not have done this without you. So with that being said, also a huge thank you to Congressman Lynch for sending in his video and being a part of this webinar with us tonight. It is so great to hear from everyone that spoke, and we are so grateful. So thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.